All right, greetings and welcome back to another video. I really tried to go live and read the next chapter live, but for some reason I was having a lot of technical difficulties. So I'm just going to go ahead and record it and then I'll upload it. It is the next day. So yesterday I read Triad. And as I expressed, I've got free time and I wanted to go ahead and really get caught up since I hadn't read since Easter. So we're going to read chapter 4, which is on the number 4, Tetrad today, and maybe even do 5 tomorrow. So if you are just tuning in to this, series, please go back and catch the very first video in this playlist. I'm reading a book called A Beginner's Guide to Constructing the Universe by Michael Schneider. And each chapter goes into I see it as the esoteric, symbolic origins of what we call numbers, but are actually symbols and archetypes. Today we only use numbers in one aspect of one attribute when they have many attributes and they are actually archetypes. So we've dived into 0, 1, 2, and 3, and today we're going to dive into 4, which is known as Tetrad. I'm gonna try some different layouts. This is the one that I actually like to use. Oh, okay. So I think I might have just figured out how to actually make this work. All right. So we're diving into um Tetrad. Let me just check one other thing for on the tech side because no, never mind. I want to make sure this comes out right. Yeah. So hopefully that'll work. All right. So we have Tetrad, mother substance. And if we look at the image there, we see the Vesica Pisces. We see, actually, we see a set of 4 small triangles. And that has actually made a square, or what looks like a diamond, looking at it head on. And the caption says the birth of the square. So I'm interested to see how this construction creates the square. And if we go into the triangle first and then the square, but I'm curious. I'll read a few of the quotes. Sometimes I do skip over the quotes, but feel free to pause the video to take a look at any additional quotes that I may not read or images that I may not speak of. So we have one cannot help but be in awe when one contemplates the mysteries of eternity, of life, of marvelous structure of reality, of the marvelous structure of reality, Albert Einstein. To know the order of nature and regard the universe as orderly is the highest function of the mind. The perfection of mathematical beauty is such that whatsoever is most beautiful and regular is also found to be most useful and excellent. In all their works, the ancients proceeded on definite principles of fitness and in ways derived from the truth of nature. Thus, they reached perfection, approving only those things which, if challenged, can be explained on the grounds of truth. And then we have, what canst thou see elsewhere, which thou canst not see here? Behold the heaven and the earth and all the elements, for of these things are all things created. We carry within us the wonders we seek without us. One race there is of men, one of gods, but from one mother we both draw our breath. In the search of the depth, although the 10 mathematical archetypes exist simultaneously, it can help to view them as a sequence. We've seen the creating process emerge from the monad's point to the dyad's line and the triad's surface. And that is from 0 dimensions to 1 dimension to 2 dimensions. Our journey corresponds with the emergent structure of a plant, the point of the seed, the line of the stem, the surface of the leaf. We now come to 3 dimensions, to volume, to the fruit of our geometric plant. 3 points define a flat surface, but it takes a 4th to define depth. The archetype of 4ness, called Tetrad by the Greek mathematical philosophers, is expressed in geometry and nature as volume, 3-dimensional space. The tetrad provides the framework of anything we can point to. Like other mathematical archetypes, the principles of the tetrad are born as shapes. Through the portal of the Vesica Pisces. But now triplets emerge: the tetrahedron, the square, and the cube. The flat square, or tetragon, Greek for 4 sides, has 4 equal sides. The tetrahedron, Greek for 4 faces, is a volume of 4 identical triangular faces. And the cube, or hexahedron, 6 faces, the most well-known volume, is enclosed by 6 square faces. These forms recur in natural and human creations and symbols. The geometry of the tetrad manifests itself in nature with greatest exactness at the borderline between non-living and living forms. The 3 geometric forms are widespread as the remarkable submicroscopic structures of atoms, molecules, crystals, viruses, and living cells. Let's see how the triad's flat surface blossoms upward to become the tetrad's volume, how the triangle becomes the tetrahedron, the first fruit of the creating process. Hast thou entered into the springs of the sea, or hast thou walked in the search of the depth? The birth of death. Construct the tetrahedron. Here's how to bring depth to the universe. First, construct a Vesica Pisces and a large triangle. All right, so there's here. We do 2 circles, and you put points on the connecting point at the top. Oh, it would be interesting to see, go back and visit that triangle construction. But you do start with the triangle. Subdivide the triangle into 4 smaller triangles by connecting the circle's centers, okay, and their intersections. Draw tabs extending along the 3 outer triangles as shown for gluing. Cut out the form around the tabs. Crease each line and fold the 3 corners upward until they meet at one point. Glue the tabs along the inside of each edge. Wow. Hold the tetrahedron and rotate it. It appears similar from every direction. The tetrahedron is the only 3-dimensional shape whose corners are the same distance from each other. Other than the sphere, the universe doesn't allow any volume to have fewer than 4 corners or faces. Press it between your hands, between a corner and its opposite face, to feel its strength. Of all structures, this first 3-dimensional shape is the most spare. Space is desiccated to its minimum volume. Buckminster Fuller considered the tetrahedron to be the basic unit of space, while the sphere encloses the most volume in the least surface area. The tetrahedron encloses the least volume with the greatest relative surface area. Being the minimal solid, it is the strongest and most stable. The birth of the tetrahedron, the first volume, brings the triad's principle of triangular stability to 3 dimensions using the fewest materials. We find the triad in tripods, music stands, 3-legged stools, campfires, and wheelbarrows. The tricycle's 3 wheels form a triangle on the ground to support the seat above with greatest stability. The occasional tetrahedral packaging of milk and juice takes advantage of the volume's great strength. Insects may make use of tetrahedral stability for walking. Having 6 legs, they walk on 3 at a time, alternating every other leg from one side to the other. They move forward as if on tripods. The lotus position of yoga stabilizes the body into a self-supporting pedestal for the mind's undistracted meditation. There are always 4 ways to look at any 3-dimensional structure: as points, lines, areas, and volumes, or as corners, edges, faces, and from the center on outward. This construction built a tetrahedron of 4 faces. We can also think of it as 4 corners, made by simply stacking 4 spheres, like oranges whose centers make the corners of a tetrahedron. A thing may endure in nature if it is duly proportioned to its necessity. In the 1870s, the Belgian physicist Joseph Antoine Plateau constructed a tetrahedral wireframe and dipped it in soap solution. To his amazement, the film did not just cover the faces, but met inwardly to create a fascinating internal structure. After measuring it, he discovered that the film followed the path that made it cover the minimal surface area possible, yet connect every edge. When he then captured a single bubble in it, he was further astonished to see a small curved tetrahedron at its center. Wireframes are a way for nature to reveal her own minimalist geometry. The one that shows up as microscopic forms the structures of molecules, crystals, and microlife. Architects have found that by building along the lines of force shown by Plateau's soap films, they can create extremely thin yet strong structures that resist compression and tension. Nature uses as little possible of anything. Bend wire to form a tetrahedron and extend one edge to use as a handle. Repeat Plateau's experiments to see how form in nature is a graph of forces. The tetrahedron commonly occurs in organic and inorganic chemistry and in the world's submicroscopic structures. Its geometry frames the architecture of many elementary molecules, including methane, ethane, and ammonium. The basis of amino acids, the building blocks of life. Wow, we should highlight that. In each of these 3 molecules, a carbon or nitrogen atom sits at the center of a tetrahedron at whose 4 corners are smaller hydrogen atoms. The similar charges of hydrogen atoms, electron pairs, cause them to go as far as they can from each other. The result is a tetrahedron, the only 3-dimensional shape whose every corner is the same distance from every other corner. Substances may be composed of identical atoms whose different geometric configurations give them different characteristics and properties. Glass and quartz, for example, are both composed of sand, silicon dioxide. Glass is brittle and transmits visible light while blocking ultraviolet rays. The unstructured molecules of glass flow as a liquid. In fact, glass, the oldest synthetic polymer, is not considered a solid, but a supercooled liquid flowing slowly over decades. But the same silicon dioxide molecules in quartz link so that every silicon atom is at the center of a tetrahedron with oxygen atoms at its four corners. Its extended tripod structure makes quartz a hard crystal, which, like glass, transmits light, including ultraviolet frequencies. But quartz is not as hard as diamond. The world's hardest naturally occurring substance and best conductor of heat. The diamond is also structured as a tetrahedral network, but only for carbon atoms, each of which sits at the center of a tetrahedron, having four other carbon atoms at its corners. Because the energy bonds between the atoms are so short and strong, lying along the edges of a minimal tetrahedron, a diamond is firm and difficult to cut. But diamond cutters know how to overcome its hardness by slicing along the tetrahedral faces. With the tetrad come volume and structure. But why is the number 4 associated with physical manifestation? To better understand the tetrad, let's examine its expression as a square. Numbers, furthermore, as archetypal structural constants of the collective unconscious, possess a dynamic, active aspect, which is especially important to keep in mind. It is not what we can do with numbers, but what they do to our consciousness that is essential. Wow, so we definitely need to highlight that. I love the way that she sums it up. Back to square one. Wow, back to square one, a common saying. The square is an obvious symbol of fourness. Unconscious knowledge of it is so strong within us that it wells up in many of our sayings. We speak of getting a square deal and a square meal, of square living, being fair and square, facing problems squarely, and sometimes going back to square one in order to square our accounts. If an event does not square with our sense of justice, or a story is not squaring with the facts, we sometimes must have square-jawed determination and stand for square, having our feet planted squarely on the ground. Like its sibling, the tetrahedron, the square is associated with equality, reliability, fairness, firmness, and solidity. For firm and fair goes the saying. I have not kept my square, but that to come shall be done by the rule. William Shakespeare. The ancient Greeks noticed that 4 is the first number formed by the addition and multiplication of equals. 4 equals 2 plus 2, which equals 2 times 2, and so was considered the first even number and first female number. Even numbers were considered female. Odd numbers, male. In Hebrew and other languages, the names of parts of the body that occur in pairs, like eyes, hands, have a feminine ending. Words for parts of the body that occur singly, like the nose, have masculine gender. To the Pythagoreans, the even-sided square represented justice because 4 is the first product of equal values, a number divisible every way into equal parts. That is, 4 equals 2 plus 2, and the two 2's can be further divided equally, 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, and each divided again finally to 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1. 4 is the first number to reach back to its source in the monad this way. Oh, okay. We write the numeral 4 as if in 2x2 grid. Oh, wow. Look at that. The planet Earth below us, solid ground, terra firma, is the supreme symbol for substance, mass, volume, strength, and stability. We organize space on the ground by the 4 cardinal directions of the compass and our body, dividing the circle of the horizon around us into 4 quarters in front and back of us to the left and right. The 4-cornered cross in a circle has long been the astronomical symbol for planet Earth. Oh, really? I didn't know that. So that's interesting. Let me highlight that. The 4 traditional winds blow across the 4 corners of the globe. We quarter not only space but time, naturally dividing the year into 4 seasons based on the relationship of the sun with the earth around the 2 equinoxes and the 2 solstices. Fourness indicates association with the stable, solid earth. The ancient Egyptians symbolized this by showing 4 pillars arising from earth to support heaven. The Mayans likewise portrayed 4 beings as supporting the celestial roof. Regardless of the culture, the square has been regardless of the culture, the square was the preeminent symbol of the ancient earth mother goddess. Wow. The square. The cube. Oh, wow. So now that's got me thinking about in all the sci-fi movies that I love to watch, how there's always a cube, right? And the cube is just used a lot for esoteric things. So this is interesting. Regardless of the culture, the square was the preeminent symbol for the ancient earth mother goddess. The association of the earth with the number 4, femaleness and justice, is very ancient. Far preceding recorded history. The principles of the Tetrad describe her nourishing aspect. She gives birth, clothes her creations with material substance, and encourages their growth equally. The word nature comes from the Latin for birth. In the Navajo language, nature is called changing woman. The Navajo term for summer then is changing woman's happiness. Mater, the Latin word for mother, has given rise to the word matter, also related to meter, measure, and matrix. The Latin word for father, pater, gave rise to patron and pattern. Thus, natural forms can be seen as coming from both a mother and a father, the mating of matter and pattern. In the way that a mother provides nourishment for her developing child, the world mother is described in myths as nourishing the emergent archetypal patterns with matter, consisting of 4 types of food called the 4 ancient elements: earth, water, air, and fire. These elements provided the mythopoeic way of referring to the modern scientific 4 states of matter: solids, liquids, gases, and plasma, or electronic incandescence. The 3 denser states are familiar to everyone as ice, water, and steam. The 4th state, which the ancients called fire, is known today as plasma. The glowing electrified gases that burn in the sun and stars and cause the fiery glow within fluorescent lights and neon signs. We laugh at the simplicity of the ancient concept of just 4 elements comprising the world, when today we recognize over 100 varieties of atom. But no matter who looks at the world or when, we can find only 4 phases of matter, 4 clothings of nature. Nature unfolds these 4 states in a particular order. Ice must pass through its phase as water before it becomes steam. If you ever forget the correct order Plato gives in his Timaeus, just fill a jar with water and soil and air and shake it up. The natural layering into which it settles will show you the order of the elements or states. Most dense earth on the bottom, then water, above that air, and most ephemeral light passing through. Being so close to the earth, we express the archetypal symbolism of the tetrad in many ways without realizing it. In cities, we walk on sidewalks inscribed with squares that symbolize the earth they cover. As communities grow, they are often laid out by city planners on a rational square grid street pattern. We build right-angled architecture and erect chain link fences made of tilted squares as symbolic walls of earth. Beds, tables, chairs, and thrones are miniature models of the earth. The square insists on serving as material boundary. That's interesting. The chessboard is the world. The pieces are the phenomena of the universe, and the rules of the game are what we call the laws of nature. Gridded graph paper is a symbol of the four corners of the earth, the largest drawing surface there is. Farmers plow square fields on the traditional 40 acres of land. The ancients noticed that four-footed animals are earthbound. Four shows up whenever there is reference to earth and matter. A baseball diamond is actually a square, as is a boxing ring where fighters square off. Many sports fields are square-cornered, signifying arenas of earthly action, material conquest, and physical interplay. The history of board games is full of square-cornered fields of play, symbolizing initial equality in the earthly sphere of action, mass, and force. In classical origami, the Japanese art of paper folding, each construction always begins with a square. Thus, origami cranes, horses, frogs, plants, and people all share a common materia. The Harlequin's costume with its checkerboard pattern symbolize his role as a, let's look this up, Catholic, Thanic, whoa, yo. Oh my goodness. Thanic, Thanic, uh, Thonic, Thonic. Maybe it's just Thonic. Thonic force. There are four traditional colors in the tarot deck: white, black, red, and green. All quarter. Hold on, let's look this up too. Oh, it didn't come up. All coronaries indicate the material and perceptible. These are Hopi symbols for Mother Earth. Labyrinth at Chartres Cathedral, and Italian Renaissance garden plan. Square labyrinths and those built around squares and crosses are metaphors of our wanderings through the earth, symbolically within ourself and our path of transcendence. Words containing the letters Q often hint about their relation to the word square and its Latin counterpart, quadratus, as in quarter, quartet, quart, 1/4 of a gallon, quarry, where square-cornered blocks are cut, quarantine, 40 traditional days of isolation, and squadron, a group of four. Squadron. In the classic symbolism of myth and religion, the number 40, 4 times 10, marks a passing beyond, see chapter 10, a worldly or fourfold material phase. This symbol of passage leads significance to Noah's reign of 40 days and nights. It is also reflected in the life of Moses, whose 120 years encompassed three 40-year phases, and who waited 40 days on Mount Sinai to receive the Ten Commandments. The Israelites spent 40 years wandering in the desert. Jesus's 40 days in the wilderness, the 40 days of Lent, and Ali Baba's 40 thieves each recall the transformation of earth and self, often through physical ordeal. At the 40th day of human pregnancy, the embryo becomes a fetus. The Egyptian glyph for town is an X in a circle, followed by a half circle that denotes the feminine gender. Today we find the same glyph, the X in a circle, in street signs saying no standing. In both examples, X marks the spot, this ground, this earth. 4 basic key designs of classic architectural ornament indicate the 4 ancient elements. All right, ape factor. Mountaineers quantify the extent of their reach by the term ape factor, the ratio of arms span to height. Since on average, our height equals the distance of our outstretched arms. Really? An ideal body fits within a square. Really? So this is my height? I thought I was taller than that. Its diagonals cross at our genitals, indicating the square's relationship to fertility, birth, and generation. If arm span and height are equal, the ape factor is unity. A higher ape factor means a greater reach, desirable for those who climb and hug the earth. All right. Earth's four-cornered cracks. When you see three-cornered 120-degree cracks in elastic materials, you know that the universe broke quickly there. But when you see four-cornered crossings, 90-degree cracks in 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 elastic materials such as old paint, tree bark, porcelain sinks, tiles, and the inside of glazed ceramic mugs, you can be sure that they split slowly over years, decades, and centuries, whereas the molecular bonds in elastic materials continually adjust their strain in all directions. Inelastic materials do not yield so easily, releasing their tension slowly in one direction. The longest cracks are the oldest. Four-cornered cracks are the crow's feet of matter, the birth of the square. While the triangle was constructed by connecting existing points within the Vesica Pisces, the construction of a square requires the faculty of rational thought. One goes through a sequential logical procedure in order to discover the hidden points to connect. Some people are called squares and blockheads for being too rational. There are many approaches to constructing a square. Here are 2 useful ways. The first is the simplest and most elegant. It arises completely within a Vesica Pisces. 1. Construct a Vesica Pisces. Draw a horizontal and vertical line connecting the centers of the circles in their intersections. 3. Put the compass point where the lines cross at the center of the Vesica Pisces and the pencil at one circle's center. 4. Turn a small circle. Okay. Connect the 4 points where the circle crosses the lines to make the tilted square visible. Oh, okay. I like that. The second method is the classic one given in Euclid's Elements for constructing a square given upon a given side. I don't like this way. I'm just looking at it like, Follow the logical rhythmic dance of the compass with the Vesica Pisces to produce a square. Complete the arcs, turning them into full circles to see the full dynamic of forces. The weave of the goddess. With our ability to construct a square, we can bring the principles of the Tetrad to our universe. I need to highlight that, y'all. With our ability to construct a square, we can bring the principles of the tetrad to our universe. We can create volume and clothe it with the four elements or states of matter. The ancients symbolized this materialization process by weaving. The earliest known goddess in prehistoric Egypt was Neith, goddess of weaving, wisdom, and war, later known to the Greeks as Athena. Although Neith is seen as a virgin goddess, her headdress of two crossed arrows symbolizes the polar crossings of male and female principles of warp and weft, needing to make cloth, the ancient symbol of matter, needed to make cloth. So cloth is the ancient symbol of matter. Diagonals, let me highlight that because I really like that. Diagonals represent crossing and fixing. Crossing, like multiplying, represents fertilization. This is the origin of the use of an X to indicate multiplication. Wow. Yes, because crossing, diagonals represent crossing and fixing. Today we speak of multiplying our progeny, cross-pollinating plants and crossbreeding animals. The crossed arrows also represent the diagonals of a square. Upon her four-quartered loom, Neith weaves the four states of matter with which subsequent mother goddesses clothe newborn forms. Huh. In the Greek alphabet, whose letters represented numbers, the words for goddess and Gaia, or Mother Earth, each add up to 15, 1 unit from 16, which is 4 times 4. The square of a square, an ultimate symbol of the archetypal feminine as fertile mother goddess, the ability to construct a square gives a geometer access to this hidden framework. All right, so let's read that again. In the Greek alphabet, whose letters represented numbers, the words for goddess and Gaia, or Mother Earth, each add up to 15, 1 unit from 16, which is the square of a square. An ultimate symbol of the archetypal feminine as fertile mother goddess. The ability to construct a square gives a geometry access to this hidden framework. Oh. To explore the principles of the tetrad, first we'll need to construct a square by Euclid's method, then quarter it by simply drawing and extending the Vesica Pisces vertical line through the bottom and the top of the square. Use this distance to walk the compass around the square and find the middles of the four sides. Draw lines connecting these opposite midpoints to quarter the square. Also draw the square's diagonals. Diagonals are the means by which a square may be extended upon itself or into its own depths. Oh. The use of plus and cross between the midpoints and corners allow us to harmonically decompose or diminish the square in a quaternary rhythm, giving us lines and crossings that maintain the root 2 geometry of generation, as in a woven cloth. Connect the four midpoints to make a tilted square. Notice the points where the diagonals cross it, and connect them to make a smaller square within it. Now notice where the smaller square's sides cross the plus, and draw lines connecting these 4 points. Continue weaving this pattern, the ultimate symbol of material manifestation, in as small a scale as the point of your pencil will allow. Each square covers half the area of the previous larger square. Try doodling and shading this design to see patterns emerge. Extend lines to see greater geometric detail. The pattern is a powerful mandala to gaze at. With its Okay. When its geometry has been properly applied by skilled artists who know the rules for relating the scene to the geometry, it can bestow a structure with a gripping effect on viewers. Traditionally, only the images of deities align perfectly along the lines. Worldly characters are slightly off the lines to indicate that the world's material forms are only approximations of ideal, eternal archetypes. This placement gives the images of deities a feeling of serenity and otherworldliness, while forms placed away from lines have a feeling of motion and life, of time and transitoriness. This was once part of a well-known design canon based on nature and the science of visual perception. It is periodically rediscovered, used, and shunned throughout history. At its best, geometry gives the artist great freedom, but over time, its use becomes mechanical and the art loses its spontaneity. Then artists shun geometry in favor of free form, each age finding its own expressions for the archetypes that motivate it. Hmm. Yes. Discover the goddess weave in natural form. A square with crossings has been constructed around both of these natural forms. One has been harmonically decomposed. Do the same with the other to see how nature's designs express this geometry in their details. Wow. So this is tungsten atoms magnified 2 million times, resemble watery ripples in a square pattern of energy vibration. The skeletal design of a microscopic radiolarian follows the lines of force within a decomposed square. Discover the goddess weave in goddess art. For over 50 centuries until recently, artists, craftspeople, and architects have consciously used the language of geometric symbolism as an underlying framework in their creations. They use different shapes for different themes. The decomposed square was often used to depict a goddess in her fertile, birthing, or nourishing character. Many examples from worldwide cultures use the same geometric symbolism, which arises spontaneously from everyone's own archetypal depths. Gods and goddesses were personifications of natural processes and principles at work in the cosmos and ourselves. Inspiration, even passion, is indeed necessary for creative art, but the knowledge of the science of space and the theory of proportions, far from narrowing the creative power of the artist, opens for him an infinite variety of choices within the realm of symphonic composition. Each of the following figures is enclosed by a square with crossing lines within it. Some have already been analyzed. Harmonically decompose the square around the others to see how each was designed. As you do the geometry and see the grid crystallize, you'll see its relationship with the scene unfold and mesh. Use what you learn to design your own compositions. Hmm. The aim of art is to represent not the outward appearance of things, but their inward significance. Arching with misplaced arms over the waters of chaos from which the cosmic order emerged, the Egyptian sky goddess and mother of the gods Nut swallows the sun at dusk amid the stars. She gives birth to it as dawn where its rays shine upon the face of the nurturing goddess Hathor on the horizon. Hmm. Egyptian mother goddess Set, known in Greek and English as Isis, holds the glyph for eternity while kneeling upon the glyphs for gold and perfection. The scene's geometric center is just in front of her womb. In myth, the Egyptian vulture goddess Mute was a virgin fertilized by the north wind. The beautiful is a manifestation of the secret laws of nature. When nature begins to reveal her open secret to a person, he feels an irresistible longing for her most worthy interpreter art. All right. Matter makes matter, and the world was void and without form, and darkness was on the face of the deep. Everything created shares the urge to create. Through the miracle of birth, the great cosmic creating process expresses its archetypes and becomes more conscious of itself. By bringing into expression the vision locked in our hearts, we resemble that process and grow in self-awareness. Through geometric replication of nature's formations, we can learn about the archetypal principles inherent in universal design and in ourselves. In ancient mathematical philosophy, the first stirring of the monad results in the polar dyad. Its geometric metaphor is the construction of the Vesica Pisces. In myth, it is represented as the meeting of primeval parents. All creation is due to polarity. Every birth occurs through this interpenetration of positive and negative, light and dark, male and female, God and goddess, electricity and magnetism, and the two circles of the Vesica Pisces, where geometric forms configure. Numbers are the sources of form and energy in the world. Wow. The sources of form and energy in the world. While modern science understands the universe as a synchronization of electronic power with magnetic fields, vibratory patterns of electromagnetic frequencies, and energy bonds, the ancient bards sang of the union of the Great Father and Great Mother. They saw the bright lightning of the sky galvanize the dark caverns of the earth into activity, namely fertilization of the land with nitrogen. Temples, mounds, and cairns around the world served as technological devices, fertilizing the communities in which they were built. The ancients personified their vision of the subtle forces of nature in myth. Where modern science observes the triad of light energy and mass as equals mc squared, the ancients mythologized a mystic marriage and birth in 3 stages. A field or womb of light arises, it swirls as an energy pattern, and physical forms precipitate upon the pattern. The geometer replicates the cosmic configuring process with 3 tools. When the precise union of circles occurs, the 3-stage process of birth begins, culminating in forms clothed by the 4 states of matter. Wow, I really like how all of that comes together. So yesterday in the triad, we saw the correlations of the modern science. This is how modern science sees the triad. The light, energy, and mass. And I actually highlighted that. So maybe we can, here we go. So from yesterday, yeah, this one. What scientists call light, energy, and mass are the traditional spirit, soul, and body described by Polark as nous, psyche, and soma. And so basically we kind of have the parallels. We have the 3 tools. All right. So we can represent the trinity of light with the 3 tools, the compass, the straight edge, and the pencil and paper. And these three tools of light, so we use those three tools of light, energy, and mass to construct the cosmos, and by which the symbolic geometer, which is like us, right? We're the symbolic geometers when we construct these things with pen and paper with the three tools. Approximates archetypal patterns are also mirrored in us. Okay, so we approximate those patterns. So what scientists call light, energy, mass are actually spirit, soul, and body. So that's gonna, that's a lot to digest, but I'm starting to see the connectivity of all of this. Uh-oh, I lost my page. Um, think oh no. Hold on. Today. I didn't do that today. Hold on. Oh, it's underneath it. Okay. Here we go. So, picking up where we are today, let's just reread this, see if we can kind of bring this together. The ancients personified their vision of the subtle forces of nature in myth. Okay, so we know that they use myth to personify what they were observing in nature. Where modern science observes the triad of light, energy, and mass is equals mc squared, the ancients mythologized a mystic marriage and birth in three stages. Okay, so we know that the ancients like to use myths. Modern science, of course, are seeing this as light, energy, and mass. So the myth that the ancients are using is this mystic marriage and birth in three stages: a field or a womb of light that arises. It swirls as an energy pattern, and then physical forms precipitate upon the pattern. Okay, so that's the myth of it, right? Now, the geometer, which is like us, when we pick up those three tools, the compass, the straight edge, the pencil and paper, we become the geometer, which is like a version of a creator. This is, as a math teacher, you guys, I'm thinking about the course geometry. When we were young, we remember on our supply list, we had to have a compass, we had to have a protractor, pencil, paper, graph paper, all those things. And we actually spent time in class constructing these sorts of things. It is not like that now. Okay. Nowadays, at least in the schools I've been teaching in, this is not a priority. And actually, geometry is actually being like siphoned away. The course is being absorbed into algebra. So algebra is sort of expanding in a way, and they're just kind of begin to include geometry in that. But can you imagine that at one point, if we were taught to see archetypes and taught nature through this lens, how much more it would open up for us, you know? I almost want to, I mean, I guess I am taking myself through the process of learning in that way. And that's a part of the reason why I'm doing this. And I'm sharing it with you all, because I want to learn in this way. But I would love to be able to facilitate learning in this way from the very beginning. Okay, so let's see where this is going. The geometer replicates this cosmic configurating process with the three tools. Okay, so when the precise union of circles occurs, the three-stage process of birth begins, culminating in forms clothed by the four states of matter. Wow. The distribution of energy follows definite paths which may be studied by means of geometric construction. The distribution of energy follows definite paths which may be studied by means of geometric construction. So we can actually observe the distribution of energy and the unfoldment of the creation of matter through geometric construction. So as we sit down and do these constructions of geometry, we can then learn how nature distributes energy. We can study it. That's what he's saying. So geometric manifestation from light through energy to matter. That's what we're looking at here in this diagram. The geometric manifestation from light through energy to matter. So this is how light, which is like pure energy, becomes physical matter. This is the process that it goes through. It's a 3-stage birthing process. That's what the monad, the dyad, and the triad taught us. When it gets to the triad is the birthing process, and the tetrad is the first physical thing, right? The first form of matter that is birthed out. Okay, so a sphere representing undifferentiated light stirs, right? So that's our monad. The monad, which is wholeness, which is everything, right? It stirs. So let's just imagine it moves. Okay, so it's moving, polarizing into opposites, symbolized by the two intersecting circles. So with that movement, that stirring, we get the dyad, which is the two. The two poles swirl in opposite directions in mathematically precise rhythmic energy patterns, represented by spiraling cones. So they're swirling in opposite directions, very precise, very rhythmic energy patterns. And now we have these cones, right? That is representing this swirling. The sphere becomes a whirling energy field, displaying lines of force upon which atoms configure. To manifest material visible volumes. So that sphere becomes a whirling energy field, displaying lines of force. So then you got force lines, this force lines, upon which atoms configure. So it's moving, it's making the atoms start to arrange and configure and get into their arrangements. And so we read earlier in the chapter about the square. I don't remember. I believe it said hydrogen in each corner. But anyways, just imagine whatever that configuration is, you know, when that whirling energy field is moving, it's whirling, and it's creating this force that's pulling the atoms in these different configurations. And that is what gives us material visible volumes. Wow. The womb of the world mother stirs. Electronic power galvanizes magnetic energy into a state of activity, but there are no distinguishing features. The geometer uses the compass to draw the womb as a circle around the Vesica Pisces from its center. In the past, it has been referred to as the monad, the Orphic egg, the pneumatic ovum, and individualized field. Archetypal patterns arise. The electromagnetic field spins like a sun on its axis. Massless light whirls in mathematically precise rhythms and patterns. This is Plato's world of pure knowledge, the realm of ideas, and the world of wonder. described by seers. The Egyptians personified this field as the work of the architect builder god Ptah. Huh. Okay, so actually, let's highlight that. And then I'm going to pause for 1 moment. Oh, actually, okay, so it was a little chilly. But this is actually getting really, every day every time I read this, I'm more and more enamored. But let's keep going. So the Egyptians personified this field as the work of the archetype builder god Ptah. The Greeks called it Archaeus, the builder of first principles. Architect, arc, and archetype all derive from the Greek word arch. According to the will of Zeus, in Hindu myth, the creative will of Indra was carried out by Vishvakarma, architect of the gods. The Freemasons call it the grand architect and builder of the universe. In Christian symbolism, it is called the mystical light of the Logos. To the geometer's eyes, the Vesica Pisces inherently holds the proportions and patterns of the basic shapes even before they are excuse me, you guys, constructed. Oh, goodness. All right, so let's reread that. To the geometer's eyes, the Vesica Pisces inherently holds the proportions and patterns of the basic shapes, even before they are constructed. The Orphic egg surrounded by a spiraling snake, symbols of the stirring monad, the womb or field of light giving birth to our divine self. The goddess gives birth. The geometer makes visible the archetypal proportions inherent in the Vesica Pisces, helping them through the birth portal. In the electromagnetic field, the spiraling, massless photons thicken into tiny opposite spinning whirls of protons and electrons that braid with neutrons into massive atoms. The precipitating atoms are tied in borromine knots along the archetypal lines of force, like threads in a carpet or beads on a loom, like morning dew on previously unseen spider webs, and like iron powder galvanizing near an invisible magnetic field. Atoms, the basis for the elements, precipitate in precise geometric patterns like lace embroidery or Islamic tiles, along these lines of force. The geometries of nature's forms reveal the pattern of their energy fields. Natural structures, then, are the archetypal matrix made visible as ideal geometric patterns materialize their clothed. Okay. As ideal geometric patterns materialize, they're clothed with 4 thicknesses of garment, 4 densities of mother substance, unfolding as light and thickening through the phases of gas, liquid, and solid. In mythic terms, the demiurge is said to conquer chaos by dividing it into the 4 elements. The worlds originate so that earth may come and dwell therein. Oh, okay. The worlds originate so that truth may come and dwell therein, Buddha. Geometry existed before the creation. We can perceive the invisible lines of force by looking at the geometry of nature's forms. Okay. For example, dissolve as much salt into a bowl of hot water as it will allow and let it evaporate slowly over a period of days. A cubic lattice of salt crystals will precipitate in this matrix fluid. The more slowly the crystals grow, the larger they will be. Rapid evaporation produces small crystals as seen in Hawaii's volcanic obsidian stone, where molten lava hits water and cools immediately. The crystals are a picture of our consciousness made by our slowly perceiving nervous system, which we identify or project onto the geometric energy configuration. What nature creates has eternity in it. The right thing is to proceed from second dimension to third, which brings us, I suppose, to cubes and other three-dimensional figures. Nature's patterns are based on the mathematics of three-dimensional space. In essence, nature's creating process yields its fruit by giving birth to volume. Constructing the universe, therefore, involves the process of volumization. Volumization. The typal field where the patterns first appear is a sphere, a monad. The geometry that arises within the sphere is obliged to manifest the monad's principle of equality in all directions. Nature adheres to this principle by configuring primary volumes that divide the sphere equally in all directions. An experiment with a rubber ball and a piece of chalk will show that there are very few ways to put points around a sphere, so that when they are connected by lines that form identically shaped surfaces, edge, lengths, and angles. Nature's first expressions in three dimensions are such forms that fit perfectly within the sphere and present us with an identical view in all directions, no matter how you turn it. These forms or volumes are based on surfaces with the same shape, either square, triangle, or pentagon. Ruled by the monad, three-dimensional nature is structurally disposed to the geometry of equality in all directions. The four elements of nature below. Okay. There are only 5 volumes that fulfill this requirement of equality by repeating the identical corner angles, edge lengths, and surface shapes around a sphere. Although scores of stone models of each of the 5 types dating from 1500 BC have been found in Scotland, no one has asserted their purpose. The 5 volumes were described by Plato and Timaeus and so are known to mathematicians as Platonic solids, and more formally the regular polyhedra, many bases. 4 were identified by Plato with the 4 ancient elements or states of matter, and the 5th, the quintessence, 5th being, represents their all-encompassing cosmos. Their names derive from the number of faces they have. So we have heaven, fire, air, water, and earth. Heaven being a dodecahedron, and the shape of its face is a pentagon. We have fire, a volume is a tetrahedron, and it has the triangle as the shape of its face. And so does the octahedron, which is air, and an icosahedron, which is water, and a hexahedron, which is a cube, and it has the shape of a square. Mathematicians have long known there can only be 5 possible equal divisions of three-dimensional space. Highly respected, discussed, and wondered at in ancient times, the construction and study of these 5 volumes were considered the ultimate goal toward which the elementary constructions built, the culmination and pinnacle of ancient geometric and esoteric knowledge. Their construction comprised the final books of Euclid's Elements, a compendium that assembled and arranged the totality of Greek geometry without the original esoteric symbolism of the mathematical philosophers. Why did they do that? We want the esoteric knowledge too. His book began with a point, line, and plane, and ended 13 chapters later with the construction of these 5 volumes. First thing one might notice about these forms is that their faces are either triangles, squares, or pentagons. No other flat shape used alone will enclose a volume without gaps. These are the most economical expressions of space from which nature's designs derive their characteristics. Variations on these 5 volumes in natures are virtually endless. They are the basis for all crystals, the orderly repeated arrangement of atoms. The first manifestations of the universe are geometric. From hydrogen to uranium, all 92 natural atoms of the periodic table that compose minerals and crystals are geometric. At the borderline between non-living forms and living creatures are the cold, herpes, and AIDS viruses, which are not alive but act as if they were and also take form as platonic volumes. Okay, at the borderline between non-living forms and living creatures. Wow. Huh. Many microscopic life forms share the geometry of these basic volumes. Each form's geometric expression is perfectly suited to its need and purpose. Recently, a golf ball manufacturer discovered that by arranging the ball's dimples into a dodecahedral pattern, he could avoid having a seam around the ball's equator that slows and rotates it. Thus, it can be made more aerodynamically stable and more accurate. Okay. The dance teacher Rudolf Laban proposed a grammar of body movements based on the relationship between the proportions of the human body and the 5 Platonic volumes. He showed, for example, that the maximum angles through which human limbs move are identical to those angles of the 20-sided icosahedron, the shape that gives the most symmetrical distribution of points, edges, and surfaces on the sphere. Thus, Laban created dances whose architecture and time was identical with the spatial harmony of crystals. If a dancer had small lights on her limbs and danced in a dark room, the different Platonic volumes could be traced by her movements. Wow. Many books have been written about these fascinating volumes. Particularly interesting are the relationships between them. For example, the corners of an octahedron fit in a cube and touch the center of each square face. Similar duals occur where the number of corners of one volume equals the number of faces of another. As this illustration shows, an octahedral crystal can gradually grow into a cubic shape, explaining the endless varieties of crystals. Construct the Platonic volumes. To read about the Platonic volumes is not enough. Constructing them is simple. In building these solids, the geometer replicates the precise mathematical proportions of the archetypal energy rhythms that nature configures as the various material forms. Three-dimensional space can be divided equally in all directions in only 5 ways by repeating one corner angle, edge, and surface shape. The cube, representing Earth, is the only volume built entirely of squares. 3 volumes have triangular faces and are known as deltahedra, triangle-faced. The dodecahedron has pentagonal faces and will be discussed and constructed in Chapter 5. After constructing the models, hold and turn them into your hands. Get to know each volume by feel without looking. The birth of the cube. The cube, or hexahedron, is the best known of the Platonic volumes, the shape we know as 6-sided dice, but also found as salts and other crystals, as well as microscopic life forms. Geometers usually construct the cube either by folding paper or creating individual faces. Both produce fascinating results. All right, so there are different methods for constructing. So here's paper folding method. Here's the face method. So this is actually taking a sheet of paper, folding it, and making a 3D object. So those were 2 methods. The birth of the three deltahedra, tetrahedron, octahedron, and icosahedron. Deltahedra refers to the three Platonic volumes whose faces are equilateral triangles. The paper folding method shown first. Construct intersecting Vesica Pisces and connect points as shown to produce triangles equal to the number of faces. Cut around the, what is that supposed to be? This models the ideal geometry. All right, so the microbes, crystals, and molecules approximate. So that's given details, right? And so then he goes over the next method, but let's just look at some of these images. So we have octahedral forms in nature and icosahedral forms. Wow. So he goes over another method. We're not going to read that. So he says, after building them, hold them, turn them, and look at them. They offer both an intuitive and intellectual education and harmony. First, get to know them by touch without looking at them. Then, for intellectual interest, you can verify the discovery of 18th century Swiss mathematician Leonard Euler that in each of these 5 volumes, the number of corners plus the number of faces is always 2 more than the number of edges. The numbers involved in these volumes have been found to be identical to the spatial representations of musical harmonies. Crystals then may be considered frozen music holding the proportions of musical intervals in the relationships of their corners, edges, and faces. Wow. The forms of nature configure as visual music. Crystallodial tectonics is a term used to describe nature's rhythmic architectural designs in 3 dimensions. Wow. The universe is the externalization of the soul. Ralph Waldo Emerson. The simple beauty of a crystal is in part its strict mathematical order. Through the study of number and shape, we begin to comprehend cosmic order. Now we can see how the world virgin is fertilizes, swirls into archetypal patterns, gives birth as the world mother, and then nourishes and clothes the geometric patterns with substance, the 4 ancient elements manifesting as atoms in configured patterns we can sense. 4 corners of the universe. A common theme in worldwide mythology is the human as microcosm, a miniature model of the whole universe. Now dismissed as primitive, this view was long considered a key to the understanding of the self. The ancient philosophers saw their inner lives arranged according to nature's own harmonies. For nature, geometry, and their spiritual lives, they discovered the same principles. A fundamental map of ourselves is found in the mathematical intimacy between the triad and the tetrad. Uh-oh, it's about to get good. Well, it's all good, but the ancient mathematical philosophers saw themselves wherever 3 and 4 mingle. 3 Borromean rings intersect at 4 secondary spaces, just as light's 3 primary colors blend to produce 4 more. This simultaneity of 3 and 4 is a simple blueprint of ourselves, the triangle denoting a divine trinity above or deep within, and below it a square unfolding, the 4 elements of familiar human nature embody outward. Trinity and quad, quad, Lord, these words are a mouthful. Quaternity. Let's see if we can, hold up, let's get some help for this. Quaternary. Hmm. You know what? You know what? Hold on. Let me make sure. Okay. And this word is just something else.
Quaternity.
Okay, that's too. I need somebody else saying it because that sounds too AI for me.
Quaternity.
Quaternity. Okay. So trinity and quaternity is represented by the symbol of the pyramid on the Great Seal of the United States, whose divine eye in the triangle floats in light above its four-faced, square-based brick foundation. This three above and four below is also symbolized in the Sphinx trapezoidal headdress, which implies an unseen trinity above. Our oneself has an inward and outward expression. In painting and sculpture, this theme was often depicted by delineating the head in a triangle and the body below within a square frame, as in this Tibetan plan of the proportions for correctly drawing the Buddha. Note also the famous symbol of the Freemasons, the compass over the carpenter's rule. The compass is open 60 degrees, the angle of an equilateral triangle above the rule's 90 degrees. The compass and square ruled together symbolize our inseparable divine and human natures. Few would suspect anything special about the design of doors, windows, and roofs, so common are weight-supporting triangular roofs and lintels over rectangular facades, doors, windows, and porticos that we hardly notice them. But this is just the effect the enlightened archetypes, this is just the effect the enlightened architects of ancient times wanted for embedding esoteric instruction about the self. The architecture itself is proportion and ornamentation, held the esoteric teaching in plain sight, a reminder of their divinity to those initiated in the timeless wisdom that speaks of self-knowledge and spiritual transformation. A triangle above a square in art and architecture traditionally represents our deepest divine nature over the four elements of our human nature. Copies of ancient architecture are scattered through our cities. The wisdom teaching is still evident to those who notice and can read it, but this century's trend in urban architecture has been simply to hang walls on skyscraping steel frames. Triangular lentils are no longer used to support weight and pass along the traditional teachings that until recently had endured for thousands of years. By allowing the square and cube to eclipse the divine triangle from common sight, we've replaced a valuable body of knowledge with soulless architecture. Wow. Yeah. I don't like all the square buildings, the cubes, the boxes. I want a triangle on top. The four elements within. The ancient philosophers saw the natural world of earth, water, air, and fire within us as the quatrain of our soul. Let's see what quatrain is. Oh, a stanza of four lines, especially one having alternate rhymes. In this inner symbolism, the four elements are seen as four levels of motivation within ourselves, a human tetrachord upon which the forces of nature play. The ancients symbolize it in many ways, in architecture, religion, mythology, and arrangements of society. Since the whole earth was symbolized by the human microcosm, it is we who are referred to as the four comers of the globe, containing the 7 C's, which are the chakras, as well as the 4 stages of spiritual journey and 4 levels of a temple or society. Adam's dominion over the earth refers to our own mastery over the 4 realms of our inner nature, represented by beasts of the earth, fish of the seas, birds of the air, and creeping things, which are traditional symbols of fire. To understand this symbolism, each of us must become familiar with the ecology of the world within ourselves. Wow. This is an interesting take on Adam naming, he was told to name all the things of the earth, but it's all allegory. 7 chakras or centers of motivation along our spine in 4 levels: earth, pelvis, water belly, air chest, and fire head. Oh, so we have 2 earth chakras, 1 water chakra, 1 air chakra. Well, actually, okay, but they're connected. That's interesting. What is represented within us by the element earth? We form identities from pictures of the world as they appear to our senses as surfaces and solid bodies. The earth nature within us relates to what is most dense, most slow to change, transform. What water is within? The ancients saw our emotions in the moods of water, surging, rising and falling, turbulent, stormy, calm, and sometimes laughing along a mountain stream or raining in tearful torrents. Our emotions is part of our inner hydraulic cycle. Like water, emotions take the form of their container. Our emotions are shaped by our worldview, family traditions, opinions, in essence, by our thoughts. These thoughts form the container that shape our emotions. If your emotions are in a particular habitual pattern, find the thoughts and beliefs that have created the rigid pattern. Work to develop new thought patterns, and it won't take long to see the emotions take different forms. The atmosphere within us is where our thoughts fly. Soaring flights of fancy, daydream castles in the air, the rarefied intellect, and clouded thoughts all refer to the influence of reason. The Egyptian artists symbolized this influence by depicting birds, sometimes netted, sometimes free, and soaring upward. Our thoughts, like the wind, are a pollinating force, spreading ideas over our inner landscape. The element of fire is represented within us by our intuitions, a flash of insight. It hit me like a bolt of lightning. And seeing the light are all phrases referring to a glimpse of our deeper self, the very power by which we are conscious. Intuitions are most ephemeral, the most electric, the least dense, and the most difficult of the elements to discern. When we are most in touch with our deeper self, we are not forming pictures, thinking, or emoting, but are simply aware of our inner fire and sense of purpose. Experiencing a deep knowing beyond thought or emotion or sense, fire is a symbol of purpose. The various ways these 4 states of matter have been symbolized over the millennia as states within us are too numerous to explore in detail. In general, they describe a 4-fold structure of the world within, symbolized by the Tetragrammaton, the Hebrew letters YHWH in English, Jehovah. These correspond with the 4 castes of Hindu Vedic society: priests, warrior, merchant, and servant, that comprise the body of society in the image of Purusha, the cosmic man. Similar in design, the structure of medieval European society separated monk, knight, burgher, and peasant roles associated with the 4 humors and the 4 somatic divisions. Today, we might consider the 4 blood types. Interesting. Okay, so this diagram is interesting. It's a lot in there. Okay, so symbols So please pause there and take a look at that. I'm going to keep reading. But it says many quaternaries symbolize the world as four elements or levels. They represent four levels or centers of gravity within us with which we identify and express ourselves in the world. The purification of each level represents four stages of transformation and transcendence taught in myth and religion. Like the temple, mandala, and cathedral, ancient society was structured as a model of the cosmos and man. The Egyptians, for example, saw the scarab beetle, like most other insects, undergo four stages of transformation, from silent egg to voracious, hungry larva to cocooned pupa to winged adult. They use this process in their hieroglyphics and mythology to symbolize spiritual transformation from a mundane life to initiation, and the mummy cocoon from which the priest initiate emerged as a spiritually awakened adult. As is evident in the stone symbolism in their architecture, the Egyptians were well aware of the four elements. In their modeling of the cosmos, Earth was represented by sandstone, water by limestone, air by translucent alabaster, and fire in their stone pottery, statues, monuments, and tinsel and temples by an igneous rock such as granite, basalt, and diorite. The ancient fourfold symbolism appears in many forms, from architecture to the origin of playing card suits. It was intended to remind and teach the initiate about himself so he might, to the degree of his understanding, come to know himself as a model of the world. Carl Jung recognized the fourfold nature of Hindu and Buddhist mandalas as symbolic of the self and its journey through the four elements, which he labeled the four orienting functions: sense, emotion, thought, and intuition. As a part of their analysis, he had his patients construct personal mandalas. The first three elements are easily available to ordinary consciousness. The fourth, or intuitive fire, is like the star, followed by the three wise men. Then, when our three lower elements become purified of destructive habitual patterns, they become wise and follow the spiritual light above and within. The geometer who takes this study from its outer symbolic form to the inner sacred experience does so through meditation. Attention is directed not to any geometric construction, but inward to one's own ecology. Self-discovery and self-knowledge require nothing outside us, only sustained attention directed to our inner landscape. It's not easy to watch sensations, emotions, or thoughts. We slip between them and mix them, tossed about by winds and waves of the world we have cultivated within. Focus on each of four levels of the body: the pelvis, the gut, the chest, and the head, to come to know them as realms of earth, water, air, and fire. Wow, I really like that. Avoid encouraging the formation of pictures, scenes, and images. Just concentrate on their feeling. Get to know your world as the ancient philosophers did, as a representation of the cosmos. In constructing the patterns of the universe, the geometer is building himself. Wow. So I did not know that this is where the number 4 would take us today. This is amazing. This is an amazing book, such an eye-opening experience to the entire world, really. You know, when I found this book, I was really curious and I questioned the title, A Beginner's Guide to Constructing the Universe. And I'm like, but this book is about numbers, you know? Oh, it's just going to tell me the sacred and secular meanings, the origins of the symbols and that sort of thing. Little did I know what numbers truly are and how a number can carry so much. So the number 4 is so much more than a number. It's so much more than a number. So I hope you've enjoyed Tetrad as much as I have. Don't forget to leave your insights, your thoughts, your reflections in the comments. Please don't forget to subscribe. Also, please share this video. If you made it this far, I know you've got some people that you probably would love to get into some conversations about. Share this playlist with them. Tell them about the book and be sure to subscribe. So it's free to like, comment, and share, and I would really appreciate it. So until next time, be well.